Morning, folks. Today's soap is brought to us from, I'm not sure how you want to pronounce that. Is that Henri? The ET part I have a hard time with. And then Victoria, I'm not real sure how you want to pronounce all that. Anyhow, straight A shave. This one here. Um, you might be able to find it on buy sell trade or eBay. I think I did see a listing for it on eBay. That's what it looks like there on the inside. And some of the scent notes that you might be able to pick up off of this one here is citrus, bergamot, tobacco, leather, tonka bean, just to list a few. And there is a date, the limited edition 2016. So in other words, it's been around for a moment, so you might have to really hunt for it if you're interested in one like this. And that is your ingredients listing right there, which is not a whole lot in there. What, maybe half a dozen there? Not much. I'm going to follow the shave up with Barbedeaux, and this one here is supposed to have a citrus scent to it. My nose doesn't really pick it up, but for me, this works wonders for the face for an aftershave. Definitely great stuff in my opinion, and you can kind of tell 6.4 ounces. In other words, this is not a small container. Kind of almost twice the size, I guess you might say, of a normal one. The normal one's what runs right around 3.4. That's 6.4, close to being almost twice as much. I've got the lather whipped over here with a. This is my first brush West Coast shaving. There's the lather I got whipped up. It is wet. It's not drippy, not like it was yesterday, but it is fairly moist. And this was pretty easy to whip up. Matter of fact, I was really creating that way too much. But anyway, it's fun. Anyway, this particular handle, I should mention, has some weight behind it, especially the balance point is just about right there. It feels great in the hand. Really enjoyed using it this morning. It did a great job whipping up this lather. Shaver of the day. This will be my first time go with this particular shaver. This one here is a Thiers Issard, I think it's how you pronounce it. And I have to look at the rest of this. It says, I think how you pronounce it is, it's either Evide Sonnant. I'm not real sure how you pronounce it, but anyway, there it is. It's a 6/8 version, and like I said, this will be my first time using it. Got this from, by the way, of Superior Shave. Going to give it a try. Oh, and also for those that are familiar with this sort of thing, I'm pretty sure this is considered to be a full hollow, and I think I've got something on my eyelashes right there. Maybe I got one that's hanging down. That's the reason why I keep on seeing something when I blink. Anyway. Also over here I have a cloth that is damp, and that's what I'm going to be wiping my razor off on, which makes it kind of nice. That way your sink water stays fairly clean. I'm going to go ahead and put the Phoenix Artisan Accoutrements Preshave soap on. This is the Christmas version. Already put a hot towel to the face this morning. And weather, in other words, we were supposed to have some storms roll through last night. And if we did, I kind of missed them. But I'm also kind of thinking that what ended up happening is that the line that crosses Oklahoma, there's a highway, it's called I-44, that runs diagonally. And oddly enough, a lot of times when storms roll through, the storm lines, they kind of sort of follow that highway. And so even though they come and cover part of Tulsa going into Broken Arrow, with that highway, the storms seem to follow that highway for whatever reason. Anyway, so I haven't really seen a whole lot this morning, or even early morning hours, much less now. Now there might be some a little later, perhaps, if it finally drifts far enough south, but missed out, in other words, on a lot of the action, I guess you might say. People further to the north, though, has probably got some, because looking at the radar this morning, it looked like they were still staying pretty busy with the weather. But at any rate, it is that time of season for us where anything and everything is possible. I think we may have gotten, how you say, out of the woods with maybe, in other words, one more freeze before April. We may have gotten past that point. we'll wait and see. But with the temperatures the way they've been, it seems like we're kind of sort of on our way to spring. I mean, the temperatures have been right up around the highs of around 70. It's been really nice weather. This is fairly wet, so I'm trying to be careful not to get this everywhere. No, last time I had soap everywhere. In other words, cleanup was a little bit extra. But the scent, even though it has a tobacco scent to it, to me it's not the scent that I pick up first. My nose was picking up the citrus first, and some of the tonka bean. The tobacco seemed to come out later for me. Now for you it might be different. You know, everybody's noses are different just as well as our skin, and so if you're interested in something like this, but in my opinion this scent is really nice. It is a nice scent. I can't complain a bit about it. So if you're not a tobacco fan, for instance, I don't think it'll be off-putting just because the tobacco scent is in there. I mean, it's also got some leather in there that kind of takes the edge off the tobacco, I think, a little bit, as well as the tonka bean. In other words, there's other mixed in there to help, how you say, not let the tobacco be the forefront. It's more further down on the, I guess you might say, on the list. At least per my nose it is. I pick out some of this. I'm getting better, being more familiar with, in other words, citrus and bergamot to me are very close. They're different, but very close for my nose. Tonka bean, I have a tendency to be able to pick that up. It seems like a lot of soaps that have that, my nose picks it up pretty quick. Leather is another one, as well as tobacco. I think that's probably the reason why I like tobacco scents so much, is that my nose can pick those scents up. Sometimes other scents not so much. Go ahead and give this a try and see how it works out. This will be my first time go, like I said. Boy howdy. I spent many months looking at this particular shaver, deciding one way or the other whether I wanted to give one a try or not. I guess you might say I was trying to limit my rabbit holes. Which one was I going to fall off into? And this one here, I'm not real sure why I was gravitating to it. I know one of the things for me that I find kind of interesting is the shape of the scales, which these are, I guess, plastic, resin, whatever the case might be. The shape of the scales, I always thought these were kind of interesting to have the point at the end, but you know, different styles, so on and so forth. Just really wasn't sure whether I wanted to go down this path or not. So far, so good. And I should have mentioned, or actually I should have brought it in here, but I'll put a link down below for anybody that's kind of sort of starting out with straight razor shaving and stropping, honing, stropping, all that sort of thing. I think I'm coming closer to getting a better idea and understanding of when it comes to stropping, as well as the strops. And one case in particular is Gumatorium has Parker strops on sale for about $42. They're 3 inches in width. You got the leather side, and then you also got a polywebbing on the other side for $42. I don't think you can go wrong with that one. Reason why I mentioned that is because typically when you're looking for a strop that's 3 inches in width, you usually pay quite a bit of money further north, definitely north of $42. And I got 2 of them. Excellent buy in my opinion. I don't see how you can go wrong. Now, you need to read the description. These strops have been around for a moment. So in other words, the let's say like the rivets or the screws, in other words, the hardware was getting a little bit of patina on it. So in other words, they've been around for a while, but still work just fine in my opinion. I think the normal everyday price for those is right around the $70 mark. So 70 versus 42, I think it's a pretty good buy. I know, I like them. They seem to work just fine. And the length is roughly what I think the description says, 27 inches. I'm not a real big guy, only stand about 5'6". So I found through the course of different lengths of strops that the 27 inch, in other words, like this Parker, works well for me because my arm length just isn't that long. So the longer ones I find myself really not using quite as much of the strop, and I use more of the strop on the 27 inch. So that is something to keep in mind. In other words, that that idea that, the longer strop, is, desirable, but if you're short like me, you may find yourself not really using all that much of it because of your arm length and how you may hold it and so on and so forth. So in other words, a shorter one doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to work well for you, especially if you're short like me. And the poly webbing, you can go either way with that. With the poly webbing, you can use it for the if you're using any kind of paste, or in other words, the typical routine, whether you got a poly webbing or if you got a fire hose strop or if you got a linen strop, is that, in other words, you get done with your shave and you go to the linen to clean it off, and then you go to the leather, and that seems to be the routine. Now, whether that works well for you or not, it's a trial and error. You'll have to just figure out if it works well for you, because in other words, not all the different leathers out there, you just have to try them to see what works for you. And that's just something to keep in mind. It's kind of like a lot of like de-shaving. What one razor may work for some folks may not work for another. Same thing with stropping, with the kind of material that's available out there nowadays. You'll have to determine whether or not you can actually tell the difference in your stropping using the poly webbing, or whether it's a linen or fire hose strop or whatever the case. There it is. Got a hair right there. Got it. Thought I was seeing something up there. At any rate, in other words, a lot of this is going to be, up to the user what works best for them. What works for one person may not work for the next. So that is just something to keep in mind. The videos are helpful. Reading the comments are helpful because people have different experiences. And sometimes, I guess you might say, the experiences when I'm reading them, I'm thinking this might be something closer to what I think might be working for me versus what somebody else might be using. Now, whether it's what kind of hide is it, in other words, what kind of leather, whether it's a cow, horse, or whatever the case might be, you'll just have to try them out, find out what works best for you. And you might find after using the Parker, you may not have to go any further. You're perfectly fine for it, but there's always that curiosity in the back of your mind, wondering, well, maybe I should try this particular kind of leather, see how different it is. And I can tell you, as it goes for draw, the draw, I would say it's, I guess, about a medium. I don't think I have a heavy draw in the house. The Parker seems to be about a medium, maybe, is what I'm thinking, because it's not real heavy. I have another one that I got from Keith Johnson on Etsy, and it's lickety split. It's very fast. I mean, it is very fast. So, in other words, I know what fast is because I've got one. There's not like hardly any draw to it at all. I mean, it's just like glass. It just zip, 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 zip. Really nice. And if that's something you're looking for, in other words, he does a good job in his descriptions letting you know whether it's a fast draw or not. Anyhow, of course, the width and the length and the weight of the material, so on and so forth. He's one of my go-to sites, as well as some of the stuff that I purchase, especially starting out. That's where I started out at. got a good selection of items to be choosing from. Yeah, and to talk about a rabbit hole, you could spend a lot of money right there on the various different kind of strops and the paste and so on and so forth. Yeah, you can have all kinds of fun just in one stop. But at any rate, continuing on here, shave is going really well with this shaver. Now I should mention, when I ordered this, there was an option to have it honed before it was sent to me, and I did. And at least at the time when I did mine, there was no extra cost to it, so that's pretty nice. I could be wrong, but I did find it kind of interesting. At the time that I ordered it, not too long after I ordered it, he put out a video and he mentioned Tulsa. So this razor may actually have been on YouTube already. I should have mentioned earlier, I know in my mind I had planned on mentioning it earlier, but I just now remember. On the box it mentions carbon song, and the way I interpret that, because being like a full hollow, is that it might sing for you. And I could definitely understand why it would do that. For me, that is a bit of a challenge, is the handle. Kind of felt, in other words, hitting right over here. I'm still trying to adjust to it, getting used to it. I know a lot of times this sort of thing is just with practice, things will get, how do you say, better, more comfortable. That's the reason why I like Camus Story. Boy, for me, those are really easy to use for the most part. I have to say this is pretty easy to use. Quite enjoyable. Very nice edge. Can't complain a bit. So in other words, if you're Jared, I believe is his name, wondering about his edges, the edge you put on this one here, in other words, after the factory edge, is pretty nice. Can't complain a bit about it. That is one of the things that is, how can you say, is a selling point, in my opinion, when I go to look for a straight razor, is when you buy one from somebody and they're going to hone it for you, how's the edge when it gets to you? Because there's nothing like ordering a straight razor and you finally get it after waiting who knows how long for all the shipping issues. They finally get it to you, and now you got to turn around and you got to send it out to somebody to have it honed. That's for me, that's like no bueno. Not one of those things would look forward to. I know sometimes, in other words, when you're buying off of eBay, that's the way it's going to have to be. But that's expected from eBay when you're buying it from the store brand new from the get-go, or whatever the case might be. I would hope that it has a good edge when it gets to you, so that you can use it. And also, I should throw out there for those that are relatively new to this sort of thing, if you're buying a brand new one and it's honed, they'll tell you there's no need to strop it before you use it. Now, after you use it, of course, you'll need to strop it, but the edge is good to go, in other words. Boy, really nice shave this morning. I have a lot of fun doing these. It's a learning experience. Different widths of the straight razors to me are fun. I'm learning a lot by using different widths and different steels and so on and so forth. And one of the things I should mention in the way of different widths is I have found that the ones that aren't quite as wide, uh, I can remember through various videos as talking about being able to see around the blade. In other words, you get one that's like 7/8 or 8/8, how wide they are. I don't find myself struggling seeing around the wide ones. If there's anything I really struggle with, it's on the smaller ones, is adjusting my pressure. I find myself wanting to put too much pressure on the smaller width ones than I do with the wider ones. And maybe that might help some folks out there if you're kind of on the fence on which one to start out with. 6/8, in my opinion, is not a bad place to go. But on the other hand, sometimes, especially I guess you might say second hand, of course it could be fifth hand, depending on how old the razor is. Those ones that aren't quite as wide is still not a bad place to start. You won't spend quite as much money on them, and typically, depending on what ones you're looking at, and it seemed like to me the ease of use is pretty easy. And once you use it once or twice, you kind of figure out that, looking around the ones that aren't quite as wide, you'll get used to that. And then once you venture off into one that's bigger, you'll kind of see why maybe perhaps you'll share in the same kind of experience, that looking around the big one is not quite as bad as what it looks on video. At least up to an 8/8, and that's as big as I've got. I've got an 8/8 and a 7/8, and I've used both of those, and I don't have, looking around it or seeing around it, I don't really have that problem, because I'm using, by this point in time, you're using your feel, your muscle memory, and so being able to see around it is less of an issue. You'll get used to it. It's not that, in other words, it's easier for me transitioning to the bigger ones than it is to smaller ones. Smaller ones to me are more challenging. I think it may have something to do with the weight, but anyway, I could go on and on and on. What, 22 minutes already? Barbedeaux. This is on sale, I think, for $18, $19 versus the, I guess you might say, normal price. There's a restrictor there. I've had this one here for a moment, but it is one of those aftershaves that as soon as I put it on, I can tell the difference on what it does for my face. And for me, that's the that's the most important part, is what does it do for my face. I mean, scent is great. I mean, face it, everybody likes a great scent in their aftershave. But if it's not doing much good for your face, then there you are. And this stuff, to me, just works really well. In other words, it might be a good one to have handy if you're doing your straight razor shaves for the first time, because you can imagine some of them may be a little bit on the rough side. Nivea aftershave balm, pick whatever flavor you like. That for me it's inexpensive. You can usually find it in Target, Walmart. Runs you about what, $5, and it does a great job calming stuff down on your face and keeping it moisturized so you can shave the next day. Hey, I had a whole lot of fun. Hope everybody's doing well. Stay healthy, stay safe, and smooth shaves to you.